In 1854, the Kahns moved from Steppach, a small village, to Mannheim. And that was a step in the right direction, and that because Mannheim was a much bigger city, it was a big city, it was a metropolitan center, and it was on the way up. It was on the Rhine, and it was not far from Heidelberg, which some of you know from where it is on the map, and the Rhine was an important means of communication with the big world, international trade. And Michael Kahn built a new feather bed processing plant in Mannheim. When I say the Kahns moved from Steppach to Mannheim, I mean the old man, Michael Kahn, who was to live for another 9 years or so, his wife, Franziska, who was 12 years younger than he, and Hermann, one of the two revolutionary sons, Bernhard and Hermann. Hermann was the younger one, and he had been rescued by his mother, Franziska, when he had been condemned as a revolutionary, and she went to the local prince, and he got him released. So Hermann was home with mother and father. And there were two other sons, Emil and Sigismund, who don't matter at the moment. And they all moved to Mannheim, and they all helped in the business. And Mannheim was just the right place for them, because it was a town that was on the way up. This was the middle of the Industrial Revolution, or rather, in England, the Industrial Revolution was in full swing, 1854. In Germany, it came a little later. And the Rhine connected Mannheim with the big world, but the important thing for the Kahns was not only that it was very good for business to be in Mannheim, but it was also culturally of great interest to them, because it was one of the great cultural centers in Germany, in Europe. And this was due to a elector, Kurfürst, in the middle of the 18th century, Karl Theodor, who built a castle and who collected paintings, and he formed an Academy of Science, and he had a terrific orchestra, the Kapelle, and he collected paintings for the art gallery, and he did all the right things, all the things the Kahns were very interested in from the beginning. And Mozart had been in Mannheim in 1776, I think, on the way to Paris, and he stayed for 3 months, and he loved the orchestra, and he wanted a job there, and he composed 6 violin sonatas, the Mannheim sonatas, and he dedicated them to the elector's wife, which we thought was a good idea, but it didn't work and he didn't get the job. But he still thought the orchestra in Mannheim was the best in Europe. And he wrote a letter to his father and said, they make wonderful music here. All right, that is the right milieu for the Kahn family, which of course was going to be very important in the cultural life of Mannheim. Now, so where was Bernhard, the other firebrand? There were 2 firebrands. Firebrand number 1, Bernhard, the younger one was Hermann. Bernhard was not around. Bernhard was in the United States of America learning about banking. He didn't go there in order to learn about banking. He went there because he had been arrested, deported, and if he had returned to Germany before there was an amnesty, not Germany, Baden, before there was an amnesty, he might have been condemned to death because he was a firebrand. So he preferred to learn about banking in the United States, and after there was an amnesty in Baden, he returned home. And the Kahn enterprise gradually shifted from Bedfeathers to banking. And I was told that this was not a rare practice, that small enterprises of this kind often did that in order to, I don't know how this works, get a capital base for their enterprise. So they lend money, whatever. But in 1867, they formed a proper bank. By then the father was dead. But the bank was called M. Kahn and Sons. And Bernhard and Emil, I think, stayed in Mannheim, and Hermann, the other firebrand, the younger firebrand, went to Frankfurt and formed, I don't know whether it was a branch, but a Frankfurt bank, also M. Kahn and Sons. And Hermann was my great-grandfather, and the grandfather of some of you who are watching this. But Bernhard is the one on whom we are now focusing. Bernhard made a very good marriage. He married Emma, the mother of 8 little Kahns. Emma Eberstadt. Now Emma was also, I hate to say this because it's foolish, but she was also a culture vulture on a very, very big scale. She was so interested in the arts and in modern things that she was even interested in Gustav Mahler. And Mahler was only born in 1860, you can imagine. By 1880, he was only 20. But she was so progressive in her tastes. And she also was, so one is told, a kind of a bohemian. She enjoyed life. So much so that it was said every second one of those 8 children was the father's. I cannot vouch for this. So there was Bernhard and Emma, and they had 8 children, and I am going to talk about all 8 of them next time, in various fashions, in fact. Okay. But first I want to say something about the family characteristics of all the Kahns. All the Kahns were good in business. They were good in banking, whatever qualifications you require for that. One of them is charm, because you have to charm people. And another one was this extraordinary interest in the arts. And Bernhard also had a very strong social conscience. And Bernhard was city councillor of Mannheim for 36 years. So he had a great interest in municipal politics. And he was also interested in social welfare. He was interested in the poor, which is not common among bankers. And he was a great philanthropist. And his wife Emma, the one who liked Mahler, and who was a member of a very distinguished family, her father had been the first Jewish mayor of Worms, a city along the Rhine. Worms, like worms. Worms, a little down the Rhine. And the father-in-law, Mr. Eberstadt, Emma's father, had been mayor from 1848 to 1854, say for 6 years or something, but had some trouble, maybe anti-Semitic trouble. He had some trouble, so he moved to Mannheim, which seemed to be a more liberal town, and he had They, the Eberstadts, had 10 children. The Kahns only made 8. And one of the Eberstadt daughters, no doubt they were all great beauties, married a man who was very interesting, an English lawyer called George Lewis, a Jewish lawyer in London who apparently was a great flamboyant lawyer. And there is a nice Punch cartoon of him. And his wife, Mademoiselle Eberstadt, had a great salon. Everybody went there, royalty and everything. And the husband, the lawyer, was everybody's lawyer. And I think, although I have no reason, no proof, that he was the lawyer for Jack the Ripper. He was everybody's lawyer, and he was fair. So that's the Eberstadt family. So they were all interested in, the Eberstadts and the Kahns were interested in cultural and social matters. And they had a belief. You see, they were not religious anymore. I do not know the moment in which they gave up Orthodox Jewish rituals. In Steppach, they must have. They went to Jewish schools. We know that Franziska did not learn German properly until she was married. They spoke Yiddish. But we don't know, I don't know, at what moment exactly they gave up the Jewish rituals. They were all Jews, but they didn't go to synagogue. They were assimilated, and it didn't matter. They were not interested because their religion was the arts. Instead of the conventional religion, they worshipped the arts. And they combined this with morality. The more dedicated you were to beauty, to beautiful things, the more moral you were. And they quoted, there's a quote which they used, I'm not making it up, and it is this: Wo man singt, da lass dich ruhig nieder, böse Menschen haben keine Lieder. I have translated this, and this is what it means. Wherever the people sing, you can confidently rest your feet. Malicious people, a malicious person doesn't sing a lied. A lied meaning song. Meaning, if you are musical, you are up on the moral scale. Teach your child the piano or the violin, and he will be morally superior. And it's a moral education. So the arts and morality were combined, and it's a very interesting and important characteristic, not only of the Kahns, of course, but of that whole attitude of the devotion to the arts. This was not frivolous. This was not snobbery. This was deeply serious. There was a deep commitment. And one of the interesting things about Bernhard Kahn, the city councillor, was, and philanthropist, he gave a lot of money away. He formed a library. He gave money for a library, and he made sure that it was built in the Jewish area. What am I talking about? In the poor, among the poor, in the working class area, along the model of England. In England, workers' education. This was also a Victorian thing. You did what you could, if you could afford to. You did for the education and improvement of the poor. And that library, the Bernhard Kahn Library in Mannheim, still exists under that name. Whether it had that name during the 12 years of the Nazis, I do not know. But I do know that it is called the Bernhard Kahn Library today. And if you don't believe me, you may Google it.